Have you been getting absolutely destroyed by everyone from close friends to complete strangers? Do you like analysis? Do you need something to listen to while you go about your day-to-day life? Well, what if I told you that you can find the answers to all those questions here? Yes, now that we got that out of the way, let's get to the topic. So, button mashing can be defined as the term for just mindlessly pushing any buttons that come to mind, and it is the most infuriating thing on the face of the entire planet. Now, part of the reason that is because fighting games are like 4D chess if it looked like sometimes anime martial arts. So, finding your opponent's rhythm and countering it is one of the most satisfying feelings in gaming in general, and it is the main attractor for fans of fighting games. So, the 4D chess aspect manifests itself in different difficulty levels, but there is such a thing as general fighting game IQ. And I will be trying to help you improve that in this and in future videos. And so this time around, I want to focus on the very basics, which are controlling your characters and situational terms. Alright, time to talk about controlling your character. So before you can do anything or be anyone that matters, you have to know what you're talking about in order to make it easier to make deliberate actions. It's like knowing the difference between a jab and a hook or other kind of punch. Once you know what it is, you know what situation to prepare for. So first up for the vocabulary, let's talk about dashing. So if it's a dashing game, then it most likely has a dash in some way, shape, or form. And dashing is a tool that you can use to get from point A to point B faster, whether you want to use it for offense or defense. If you can, like if the game you're playing has an air dash, you can use it in the air to even use it to switch sides faster, or if you're skilled enough, you can pull off a mix-up, and I'm gonna get to that in a later video. Number 2 on the list, basic attacks. So I know all the young hip kids out there are throwing out level 3s and well-placed special moves in the most disrespectful way possible, but we gotta lay the groundwork first. Your basic attacks are what you use to set up the big flashy plays, and working on getting good at these will not only make you a better player, but will make you feel like a better player. The reason I decided to differentiate between being a better player and feeling like a better player is because if you focus on getting better at special attacks, yeah, it'll make you technically a better player, but it'll get predictable a lot faster. So how do I use them? In games like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and more traditional fighting games, I would say, there'll be your standard face buttons, and in Smash, it is all the moves you throw out that include the A button. So, you know, just sort of take your time and get used to what your basic attacks are and take like a mental picture of your character's general range. Next up, let's talk about blocking. So now that you know how to scrap like a madman, you gotta learn the proper way to defend yourself. Whether you have a dedicated block button or just holding back, you have to be ready to use it at a moment's notice. Defense is usually an afterthought when it comes to new players, but once you know actually what you're doing, it's just as, if not more hype than good offense. Aside from Smash, you usually have different types of blocks. Your standard blocks protects you from high and overhead / mid attacks, but can't help you against low attacks and grabs. And grabs just be blocking all the time. Now, low blocks protect you from low attacks, and in some games you can even duck under grabs. It's pretty straightforward, so you really only gotta remember that you can't low block overheads or else you'll get bumped. Overheads and mids are considered the same for the most part. Also, that your block can still be grabbed. That's something that you really want to hold on to. Like, just think about it. You're putting your arms up, like somebody could just walk up and easy, simple. And lastly, there are parries and perfect shields, but I can get to that later. So next up on our vocabulary list will be grabs. So to round out the rock, paper, scissors relationship of attacking and defending, we should talk about grabs also. Now, a grab is usually a very close range unblockable normal attack that can hit either high or mid. Grabs lead to throws, and depending on the character, you can use those throws to keep someone closer or to get them further away from you, and usually it can cause a break in an action. In Smash, which is fundamentally different from traditional fighting games, you usually have combo and kill throws, but I can talk about that more specifically in a new Smash specific video. Now, special moves. So once you get good at all the fundamentals, your first foray into getting into the next level of skill, in this video at least, will be learning about special moves. I'll do another video on how to read fighting game input notation, but for now you really only got to worry about the typical types of special moves you'll see in a character's kit. First special move I want to talk about, projectiles. If your favorite character has a projectile, then there's a really good chance that you picked a good character. So projectiles are usually used to create space and add pressure with little to no risk when used correctly, and generally to newer players are just so annoying if that's the only thing you have to do. It's not fun to fight, and it's not fun to fight against. But anyways, passing the buck forward, we're going to talk about physical attacks next. So a physical attack special move is a special move that either has you moving your hitbox towards another character, or you're going to be moving the character you're controlling, like the entirety, hurt box and hitbox, over to your opponent. So those physical types of special moves, which you can remember by, their physical, like, I'm gonna put my hands on you attacks. The way you would use those special moves would just be for punishing whiffs basically, or extending combos depending on, the game and the character. Continuing on, we have anti-airs. So while jumping can be an easy way to get closer and further away, there is a way to counter it when you see it pop up a lot. Your anti-airs are usually strong moves that are angled towards the sky and can range from a projectile to a physical attack. Now, there are other types of special moves like buffs or stance change moves and such, but that can be a completely different video. And with that, we laid a nice foundation of terminology that we use for controlling our character and what we can actually do inside our own bodies. All right, situational terms. So now that you know the different types of moves and different terminology for what you can do and how to use them, we need to talk about the different situations that you can use them in, because another part of dealing with problems aside from identifying your tools is assessing the situation. And for more self-help advice, subscribe to the Shamuel 5000 YouTube channel. But I'll talk more about all of your options that you would have in these situations in another video, but for now I just want to talk about the situations themselves. Number one on the chopping block, we're going to talk about neutral. So neutral is the state you're in when the game starts, or anytime either player has equal access to the stage, and I guess I would say there are options too. Now, this situation is where you will see more of a balance of offense and defense, and once you recognize when you are in neutral, just generally, you can see how important playing good neutral is. Now, the faster you move from neutral to advantage state, which we will get to in like one bullet point, the more opportunities to do damage will present itself. Now, the goal of your neutral game should be getting your opponent into a corner, whether that is metaphorical or literal. Advantage. Now, advantage state is what it's called when more of your options are available to you than your opponent. And keeping up a good advantage state is important because it's self-explanatory. Once you have the advantage, you want to keep the advantage, The reason you want to keep the advantage as long as possible is because this is the situation where you're going to have the most opportunities to do damage to your opponent, because when you limit your opponent's options, it makes it harder for them to retaliate or just avoid what you're throwing out in the first place. What this would look like in a traditional fighting game is having your enemy in the corner. All of your options are available because you can move in any direction, while your opponent is cut off from behind by the edge of the screen. And if you're feeling pressured, you can get out of it by just backing up. It's just situations like that, you obviously have the advantage, and basically you just got to get good at recognizing that so you can know what to do next. And one of the best ways you can keep it is maintaining your momentum by staying unpredictable and knowing when to hold back. In Smash, this manifests itself as having stage control, which is having control of like the best part of the stage, which is on the ground, not by any platforms, in the center. The reason I specify on the ground specifically instead of over a platform is because when you're on a platform, you can get hit from all four sides, as opposed to standing on solid ground, you can only get hit from like three sides, since, you know, the underneath you is protected by the ground. So that's generally why being on solid ground is the better option. Circling back to staying unpredictable and knowing when to hold back, a huge misconception is, if I have the advantage, I basically just want to like keep attacking so that the other person wouldn't have an opportunity to like stay back. But sometimes your opponent's whipping up a fire defensive strategy. I know it's frightening to think about, but sometimes your opponent's whipping up a frightening defensive answer to the pressure you've been putting on them this entire time. Now, staying unpredictable comes into play because your opponent wouldn't be able to come up with a read as hard as that if you're attacking, but also just being patient. You already have him in the corner. He already has a place where he needs to be. You already have him where you want him to be. So no need to rush the game plan. What's up? Let's talk about some disadvantage state. Now, on the other side of the coin, you have the disadvantage state, and I would argue this is the hardest part of fighting games and a huge reason why someone may not like fighting games. Disadvantage state is most likely where you're getting your ass beat the most. When more of your options are cut off than your opponent, the only way around it is simply to play better. Advantage state is different because it's easier to hit your opponent when they have less ways to get out the way. So some ways you can play better is, first of all, by just not panicking. It's so easy to just start pressing buttons or to only try to do a certain thing in a certain situation, but you must avoid the temptation. In Smash, disadvantage is when your back is to the ledge, or when you're trying to get back on stage, or just generally when your opponent has better stage control than you do. Now, you may be thinking what kind of advice is just play better? Well, give me 2 seconds, young man. I'm about to teach you exactly what I mean by that. So when you are in disadvantage, you have two objectives. One, make some space. Before you do anything, you got to make sure that anything doesn't get interrupted by your opponent. If you have enough space to get out of your enemy's range, then retreat so you can react accordingly. This includes jumping or dashing, or walking even. Just get out the range. Now, number 2, defend. If you don't have enough space to retreat, then you want to focus on defending yourself and punishing small openings, and that will give you the opportunity to go back to neutral, or even go straight to advantage state if you play your cards right. Okay, recover. This is mainly for Smash, but after you defend against edge guards, if any, you want to recover back to the stage. I'm going to make another video for Smash specifically, but for now, I'm going to say the ledge is usually the safest place to aim for. But if your opponent suspects that you can opt to go high instead. In a more traditional fighting game, I would say recovery is the point where you successfully return to neutral or advantage, and that's where it leads into the previous point. So those are the 3 steps for getting out of disadvantage state. 1, make some space. 2, defend. And 3, recover. Remember that. That is how you play better. So, in conclusion, while it is important to know everything I discussed in this video, the most important thing to remember is to maintain your mindset. You can learn through hindsight and go into a match a different player, but the problem with that is that you're going to be coming out of that match with the same skill level that you started with. The way to make real progress is to calm yourself down and pay attention to what you're doing throughout the entire round. Instead of trying to do everything at the same time, try to focus on what you should be doing in a certain situation. With a clear head, a good understanding of what you can do, and an understanding of what situation you're in can no doubtedly help you get good at fighting games. Thank you for sticking around. I had a lot of fun making this video essay, and there's going to be a lot more in the future just about different topics that I enjoy. Be sure to continue to show your support. I've been seeing those numbers slowly grow. You can follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/shamwow5000. Hopefully I'm pointing to the wrong side. with all that being said, drink some water, hug your parents, tell your friends that you love them, and also practice those fighting games. More videos coming up. Boop, subscribe. Peace.